day everyone, thank you for tuning in. My name is Ibrahim Diallo and this is part 8 of how to build a website from scratch. Our website is finally taking shape. We have our framework that is almost ready for prime time. So far we're able to display a page. We have our layout displayed. We can see our logo and the header and the footer. But now what we really need is the content in the middle. And in order to do that, we need to have a way to store data. We're not going to be doing the database exactly today, but we're going to create a layout for this because we want to be able to write code and make calls to make requests to data without really caring where the data comes from. We just want, for example, to have the list of all articles that were written in the past 10 days, let's say, and just receive that. We don't care how the data gets back to us as long as it comes back. All right, so we're going to get to this today, so sit tight and enjoy. All right, so today we're going to get started with the structure to build a database. We're not going to build a database exactly. That's going to be probably on the next video. But today we're going to need to build something to handle all the database. Because like I explained before, in my application, I don't really want to know what the database is doing. I don't really care about that. All I want is I call a function and it gives me back some data. How it connects, whether it uses MySQL or whatever, that's none of my business. So, of course, since we're the one designing it, we first have to design it for MySQL, which, by the way, is the database we're going to be using. And if you pay attention, I'm using MySQL. MySQL functions are deprecated on PHP. Now it's been a long time, but I think it's always useful to repeat that so people get with the page, get with the, keep up with the technology. So yeah, I'm going to be using MySQL. Okay, so here I'm just going to be creating a structure and a few things that are necessary. For example, connecting to the database and the few other functions that we need to make sure we can interact with it with ease. Here I want to make sure I only use one connection per request, so I try to recycle it as much as I can. So once it's created once, we're not going to create a new instance. We're going to keep on using that same instance, unless of course we call a different database or something like that. But in our case, we're only going to be using a database, a single database, because that's usually what you do with a single blog. So yeah, this part is the database management system. I call it DBMS, and here I wrote MySQL, which the class name is MySQL helper, but of course you can use another one called Postgres helper or SQLite helper or MS SQL, whatever that works for you. But in our case, it's MySQL, which is gonna be fairly simple. All I'm doing here is connect using a new object, for example, new MySQL and then give my database credentials, and that's it. I'm connected, and throw a few errors if in case it fails. That's basically it. There's nothing magical about it. But in our code, we're not gonna be making use of this. We're not even gonna know that we're making use of MySQL over there. Except inside the model, but in the controller, for example, if we want to get all the articles on the home page, we just say get latest articles, and that's it, and it's gonna give us the articles in the format that we want. And of course, in a later video, we're gonna start creating tables and all that to actually create that data, because right now we're not even making use of a database. Anyway, I'm going to be using a technique. I mean, it's not pure dependency injection, but it's a version of it, basically, because we're going to be having different tables and different classes, and I want to load classes dynamically. And yeah, anyway, we're going to get to that. First, I'm creating a way to connect to the database, a way to disconnect, even though PHP has a very good way of disconnecting when the session ends. So it's not necessary to call close connections when you're using PHP, unless of course you're creating a second connection or something like that. You want to close the previous one. Yeah. So here is just a few helpers. For example, we have some functions for executing a SQL. For example, if you want to insert a new entry in the database, we want to use an execute because we're not getting data back. I mean, for example, we might get like the ID that change or something like that, but we're not getting the whole set of data. So we're gonna have execute SQL and query, which are two different ways of interacting with the database. And also I try to make use of prepared statements. Now it's a little difficult, and as you can see, I'm a little bit struggling while writing this because I'm trying to figure it out on the fly. What I'm trying to do is dynamically create prepared statements because I don't know what the user is going to write, how the queries is going to look like. So all I know that if they create a query in the fashion that looks like a prepared statement, for example, they have those question marks in there and they have some parameters, I want to be able to filter that out and escape it correctly. Wow, I'm having trouble with English today. But anyway, yeah, I want to escape it correctly. And it's gonna be I'm trying to be inspired by my previous framework, but without really paying attention, like looking at the exact code. But I'm trying to recreate that same feel, and hopefully it's gonna work. As of right now, I'm not even testing the code. I'm just writing as much as I can. And like I said, at this stage, we don't have errors in our framework. We only have feedback. When we try something and it doesn't work, that's feedback. It's not an error, really. So this is a little trick. Like I had a bug before when I was doing prepared statement, because you have to say which is an integer, which is a string in order to escape properly. So I'm making use of this here. Like I check if the value is numeric, which by the way it parses a string and try to see if it's numeric. So you can have values with decimal values and it still parses correctly. So yeah. So if it's an integer, a number is going to say D for decimal or S for string. In that case, we can just properly write our prepare statement. And we're going to test it later anyway. So don't see this as the final code. We're just working on it. We're building it. And of course, along the way, we're going to try to load this on the page and it will fail. And we'll try to debug it now and try to get it to a point where it's workable. Then it works with our application. So far, I'm still at the execute SQL. So when someone does an update, for example, update set value into whatever, this is what is going to be using. And there are other ways also to escape it. If you're using MySQL, you have the real escape string, which I'm going to make use of also. But I'm writing it here because I think that's the proper way of doing it. But at the same time, I'll allow the user, since I will allow users to write a SQL statement inside the model, I'll make some functions available. For example, the real escape string, I'll make that available, so you can manually escape your own data when you write your queries. And escaping is not so complicated. All you have to do is call MySQL real escape string on a string, or you use like an int or float to turn a number into, to make sure it's a number that doesn't take weird user parameters. So here I'm starting with the query, and to tell you the truth, today I was kind of struggling with this because I was trying to figure things out on the fly. I wanted to give you the real feel of how it looks like to code. This video is accelerated, but you can still see that it's slow because I'm struggling. I don't like, before I start writing, I don't know what I'm writing. Like, for example, I added the key value here, but it won't take long before I realize that no, that doesn't make any sense, and then I'll remove it. Because it's just, yeah, you see, I'll just remove all that and remove that key value and just do it another way. Whatever way that I think is useful, it is better, I will make use of it. And here also I'm trying to make use of that, make sure I can use parameters again to create prepared statements. Oh, sorry, no. On this particular case, I'm going to use another method, which I think is also nice. I'm going to be using regex here. to look for the question marks and then replace them with their correct values. And also I make use of some other features of PHP here that are not very common, that not a lot of people know. Like you can use this use keyword to pass some other values inside your function. For example, here I'm using an anonymous function, so I'm going to be using con, which is the connection object, and also I'm going to use a pointer to the C, which is just an indexer, so I can see exactly which value I'm currently at. So it's going to escape it in order, that basically. And of course, you can never rely on this entirely, so I'm going to have to create an error handler for this, like in case like someone writes the query in the wrong way. So I'll give them back feedback saying, hey, you forgot this or you forgot that. Like right here, I say if results, then we're good. Otherwise, well, things went wrong. Throw another 500. You might have noticed that I throw a lot of 500s, and yeah, I mean, I think it's useful. We don't, like, at the point where our framework is ready, the user is not going to be seeing this. This is only for us, for the developer to see, to be able to debug. For example, on production, once our code is on a production server, we'll be able to save these values in a database or on a log file. This way we can come back and see what errors happened, and so we can fix it right away. Hopefully it will never come to this on production. We can fix it while we're still in our local machine. But yeah, here I'm just gonna put a little bit of comments just to say which class this is and so on. Anyway, I'm gonna start finally with the manager. Manager is just an object that's gonna be handling our SQL. So basically, this is where if we're going to support multiple databases, for example, this is where we're going to do this. We're going to find a way to check which database engine we're using and connect to it properly. But no, we're just going to be using MySQL in our case, so we just hard code it in there. But it won't be very hard to modify it. We could definitely do this just to support any database. But no, not today. Today we're just gonna get values from MySQL, and we're going to use the functions from the MySQL helper class that I created earlier. And yeah, so for example, if I want to get a connection, I just say MySQL helper get connection, and it will give me the current connection, and get manager will just return the current manager. It will make sure that it connects to the database first, then gives me back the correct function. Here I'm like you will notice that a lot. I'm sure you saw it in the past in my previous videos. I like to define functions before I use them. So for example, here I created connect before I actually use it, and you can see I'm starting to refactor my code sometimes. Even before I'm done, I realize, wait a minute, this is redundant. Why am I creating a variable? I can just do this on my own. Now I'm gonna connect that connect object. And you might see that I'm giving it a default value. The reason is I want to make sure that if I don't specify the connection, to use the default one. Otherwise, I should be able to go inside my code and connect into a different database. And yeah, the reason I add this here is because on my own blog, I came to some point where I had to do this. For example, I have some things running in the background. There was a time I was getting some information from Twitter, so I would get that information into a different database. So I'll connect to a different database, get the data, and then disconnect from that database, come back to my regular database, and then add that data there, like the process data, basically. Okay, so here's the kind of a dependency injection I'm going to be adding here. It's going to be a little strange, but what I want to do is, like, I want to have a function that when I call it and I give it a parameter, it loads the correct class automatically. For example, here, I'm going to give an example. I'm going to write, oh yeah, for example, I'm going to give it the string blog model article, and it will know automatically which database to go and check. Which table to grab. I'm gonna write the code for it now to do just that. Yeah. Also, I want to make sure I can recycle those how do you call it? Yeah, recycle the data managers that I'm gonna be creating. So if I am in one section of my code, I make use of, let's say, the article class. I want to make sure that next time I do it, I don't have to go and do some processing and all that. I just, since it's already saved in an array, I can just access it directly. So that's why I have these first two lines at 45 and 46. I just check if it exists, just reuse it and forget about whatever happens in the bottom. Always check if when you create a class dynamically, always check if it exists first before using it. And that's a very good way to throw errors. Like in case someone creates a class or misspell it, they can see it right away. You can, and all the I'm gonna be using a consistent namespace for those. I'm gonna be calling them whatever, like let's say article data manager, or comment data manager, and so on, and they will all be in their own folder that I'll create a little bit later. You'll see. As you can see, even though this video is accelerated, there's some times where I'm just not doing anything because I don't know what to do. I'm like, I'm thinking basically. Those are the points where I'm thinking and I'm not sure what is happening. And here I'm gonna add inside a container a way to get access to the data manager. So I want to make sure that inside my code, for example, inside my controller, let's say home controller, that I do not call anything defined, any function defined inside the plugin folders. Like that way they're independent, and I can switch them basically without having to modify the user code. Okay, so this is going to be the data manager for articles. We're just gonna briefly test it just to see if it works. We're not gonna interact with the database yet, but we're just gonna make a few changes. Let's say I'm gonna create a get latest articles, and then latest 10 articles. We didn't even create the database yet, but I just want to make use of it, make sure that it doesn't throw any errors. Okay, so inside the home controller, I'm just gonna go in here, and EM stands for Entity Manager. I use that name because that's how it is with the Doctrine DBMS, which is a very good but very heavy how do you call it, ORM. So okay, I created this object, and I'm gonna call okay, and it failed. Okay, of course it's a misspelling, so I'm gonna have to fix that. And there, yeah, it works. That's it. I'm gonna make another test really quick just to see that I called the correct function. And look at that, just like that it works. So now we have this section where we can write all our database queries or functions, things that interact with the database. We will never have anything inside our inside our controller, for example, that has a query. All our queries happen in those areas. And of course, since I'm gonna add some extra functions inside the container that I can use inside my main controller. So inside home controller, I'll be able to use these. I'll be, instead of always creating a new response object and doing such things, I'll just modify this code to just return, render, give the path with the colon separated path that I created earlier. Yeah, which will be blog main index.html. Oh, yeah, that's always useful. Yeah, so I can remove the rest. So now I can say, let's say if my articles were returned, I can just take them and pass them here, which of course I made a mistake. I put it wrong. I wrote article instead of vars, and I'm struggling now. What the hell happened? Which is a good thing, by the way. So it allows me to go out there and see where the errors happen and create an error handler right there. Once I will figure it out, of course. There you go. I figured it out. But of course, I'll go back and say, maybe I should create an error handler here. But first I decided, maybe I'll do that later. Lazy. Nope. All right. There you go. I finally went back to it and decided to create an error handler. make sure that it's always an array I pass. If it's not an array, throw an error and say what happened. You see that? When we come back years from now and we don't remember how to use the framework, when we use it wrong, we know exactly what went wrong. We know that here we're supposed to pass an array, not any other type of object. See? I put the error and the error displayed correctly. Now I put back the things and everything is back to normal. Okay, so I think that's it for today. As you can see, we created a section to be able to interact with the database. We haven't created the database yet, but hopefully we'll do this on the next video. But now it should be easier for us to interact with the database. As you can, if you check my blog, I wrote a post about this, like how hard it is to switch from database to database. And the solutions I suggest is to organize all your code into a section where you can always come back and you know that all your SQL code are written right there. You don't have to do any guessing. You don't have to do any magic, basically. You just come here, and if you have to change from MySQL to Postgres, these are the functions you need to update, and period. Nothing else. Alright, so thank you for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe to get new videos like these ones, and give me a thumbs up if you really like this so I can continue making them, and it should to also make it accessible to other people. So yeah, that's it for today, and you will see me next time. Alright, bye.